Hello everybody. I felt inspired to do a video on the immune system again because yesterday a friend of mine told me that she's pretty scared about this virus that's going around, and I believe there's only one reason why people are actually scared of this thing, which I'll come on to in a second. And before I do that, I just want to talk about how the hormones of stress and ultimately our perception of what's going on right now is what's going to affect the immune system. Probably more than anything else. And also how the hormones of stress become addictive. It's very interesting, the psychology behind these emotions. So, and I'm also, by the way, going to refer to my Bible, as well as my own book, which is the Becoming Supernatural. And it's very interesting how these hormones of stress actually down-regulate the immune system. They actually cause the immune system to go down. Suppression, weakened, whatever word you want to use. And the reason this happens is if we are living in a fight or flight response, which is when we perceive there's some kind of attack on the body, some kind of perceived threat in our external environment, it causes us to go into this state of fight or flight, which is a really clever immune response, or rather body response, to keep us safe. And it puts us into survival so we can escape this perceived attack, let's say from a saber-toothed tiger. And what happens on a biochemical level is all of the blood drains from the gut and into your extremities, and you start pumping the stress hormones of cortisol and adrenaline to keep you safe. It's so clever and remarkably intelligent, and it's designed to keep us alive and out of trouble. But what also happens is all of the energy that we have in the body is expended on keeping us safe, and it doesn't go to the areas which are needed right now, namely the immune system. So what happens is the blood drains from the gut, and about 70 to 80% of the immune system is located in and around the gut. So can you imagine what happens when we live in this kind of fight or flight response, which might be being highly strung or being reactive to certain things going on around us? The blood drains from the gut consistently, it weakens the gut, weakens the immune system, and most chronic inflammation, by the way, happens in the gut, and autoimmune conditions tend to start in the gut as well with leaky gut. But we have a lack of blood flow in the very area of the body that we need to have a strong immune system. So we tend to be living, if one does tend to live like this, in this kind of moderate state of fight or flight, people are living by the hormones of stress and the hormones of survival. And one of the biggest reasons, before I come to that, there's another weird part of this is that you actually become addicted to this state. So in other words, we can become addicted to drama, and it's like a continual spiral. So what happens on a biochemical level, again, with the hormones of stress is fascinating. And I'm going to read this out from Becoming Supernatural by Dr. Joe Dispenza. And he talks about this case of this woman called Anna, right at the beginning of this book. She had this traumatic event in her life, which is when actually quite dark, her husband committed suicide, and she just developed all of these illnesses, one after the next. And obviously it's a very happy ending, because otherwise he wouldn't talk about this. But one illness, one trauma triggered this, and she was living by the hormones of stress. Various autoimmune conditions, she became paralyzed, all sorts of crazy stuff. And he's talking about what's happening in the body. And then he says, here, very interesting, if an addiction is something that you think you can't stop, then objectively it looks as though people like Anna become addicted to the very emotions of stress that are making them sick. The rush of adrenaline and the rest of the stress hormones arouse their brain and body, providing a rush of energy. In time, you become addicted to that rush of chemistry, and then what tends to happen is we use people and conditions in our lives to reaffirm their addiction to the emotion, just to keep that feeling of a heightened state. So not only do the hormones of stress downregulate the immune system, we get addicted to them. And what's one of the main reasons why people are so fearful right now? One reason, in my opinion, and that is we're watching the news. I understand that we must stay informed, but there's much better sites than the mainstream media. And I'm going to let you into a little secret right now. I stopped watching the news in 2012 when I was told and informed, and it came on my radar, that it was full of mostly fear and BS. And I can't remember seeing one useful thing about health and dis-ease in the mainstream media in 8 years. I've obviously seen some of it, and most of it is complete and utter rubbish. We can find out how to stay safe right now by not looking at the media. We can go to government sites. And if you're tuned into the mainstream media, it's a constant flow of fear and unnecessary fear. And this is what Dr. Joe Dispenza's talking about, what Bruce Lipton's talking about, all the doctors who know what they're talking about right now. They're saying stop watching the news. One of the biggest gifts I think we can all give ourselves right now. Let's say this goes to 2,500 people. If 2,500 people on this Facebook group stop watching the news, imagine what happens in 7 days or 30 days. Your emotional state starts to increase because you're not kind of being fed with all of this BS. And that's one of the biggest things we can ever do. I've become so fascinated with what it takes for people to reverse incurable illnesses. And one of the first things they do is stop watching the news. They remove influences from negativity because of what happens in the body on a biochemical level. So what I would love to just suggest is stay informed and go onto government websites, for example, wherever you are in the world. See what you need to do to keep safe, but please don't get sucked into that, because it literally can put you into a fight or flight response, and it creates the nocebo effect. And I've talked about the nocebo effect again. I was about to say I won't repeat myself. I'm going to repeat myself because there's lots of people here. The nocebo effect is when we believe a negative piece of information, much like the placebo effect, which has worked in the positive. When we believe a positive piece of information, this can trigger a very positive response in the body. If we take a sugar pill and we think that's healing us and it's going to get rid of an illness or a dis-ease, the body, the mind, the power of belief triggers this whole cascade of hormones and chemicals in the body, this perfect concoction of chemicals to heal the body. It's incredible. And this is, by the way, responsible for about a third of cases in random controlled trials, in pharmaceutical trials. It's the placebo effect, which gets the result in at least a third of cases. That shows the power of the mind-body connection. The nocebo effect works in reverse to that. So if we are believing negative stuff, if we are believing this constant infiltration of fear from the media, telling us that these people are dying and all these statistics, it's as if we're allowing ourselves to be programmed by stuff that absolutely doesn't serve us in any way, shape or form. So I personally have zero fear of the corona, none. I don't have any fear of cancer. I know exactly what I would do. I just choose not to allow myself to get programmed by what we are faced with in the media. And I think that's the only reason people are getting scared now. So I'd encourage you so much, just because of my fascination of what I've learned about what it takes for people to heal themselves and reverse all these illnesses. The best thing that we can do is be in a joyful state, be happy, be grateful, focus on all the good stuff that's happening in the planet. The world's like resetting, the globe's resetting, animals are living again. I mean, what? It's crazy what's going on right now. The Venice canals are all getting cleaned out and amazing stuff's happening. There's so much we can focus on that's good right now. And instead, a lot of people are focusing on the gap, focusing on what's not working, focusing on the news. And I would just suggest not to watch it at all, because it's mostly BS. And give yourself the break. give yourself the body break, the health break. You don't overfear it. You'll just feel better anyway. So the number one piece of advice I'm recommending right now is stop watching the news. I don't know if you got that piece of advice. And if you want to learn more about the immune system, I've got a whole new program called the Resilience Code, and I'll put a link to that below this. And I've got a 21-day version and a full 8-week version. The 21-day version is purely nutrition and movement, and the full 8-week version is going much more into the mind-body connection. So I hope you found that useful. Please share with anyone you know who is glued to the news. We all know people who are glued to the news. Please share. Understand the nocebo effect. Understand what happens to the hormones of stress. It's very important stuff to know. Thank you for watching, everyone.